everybody. The first ever Everything Open Lightning Talks. Lightning Talks are a bit of a tradition at Linux Australia sponsored or auspiced conferences, but this is the first time I've ever emceed one, and I'm probably going to be a disappointment for those of you who remember Chris, but we'll get through it together. It should be all about the talkers, not about me anyway, and the rules are that each speaker gets 3 minutes. They'll get a 30-second warning, and then I expect you all to join in, starting to clap at about the 10-second mark to encourage them to finish off. And worst case, the AV team will cut them off. So 3 minutes it is. Try and keep track of your time and make sure you get through your material. We'll also ask, we'll have one speaker up, another speaker prepared, and then as we swap over, the next speaker comes up and prepares. We'll try and run this as tightly as possible, but I'm sure there'll be some tech adventures along the way. But first up, we have Justin Warren, who's speaking about getting started with tech policy work, and his time starts now.
He's inspired by Rebecca's talk just then.
Woo!
So, the thing that you can do about that is called tech policy. I didn't know anything about that 5 years ago. Now I do know things about it, and I want you to know things about it. I want you to all come and learn how to do this. You totally can. So, who in here would consider that they're a nerd? Hey, so, can you read code?
Yes.
Excellent. Do you have opinions about which database you should use on a project? Do you have opinions about naming conventions? Have you ever used a linter? Do you have style guides? Congratulations, all of you know about tech policy. That's what it is. Honestly, that is basically what it is. If you can read code, you can definitely read legislation. It is much easier to understand than whether or not a monad is in the category of endofunctors. So if you can wrap your brain around the stuff that you already do today, you can definitely wrap your brain around how to talk to people about technology and how it should or shouldn't be used. In fact, you're already doing it. You talk to people inside the organisation you're at right now about how technology should or shouldn't be used. But what we in this room have not been very good at is explaining to people what this is all about who are not inside this room. Because, and my t-shirt is a bit of a hint, all of this technology stuff is designed by humans. And it's the interface to the humans that is what tech policy is all about. Tech policy is about taking what you know about how technology functions and translating it through an API layer into a form that other people can consume and understand. Some of those people are called politicians. And what we do with tech policy is we provide them a way to think about it that means that most of the detail is abstracted away and they only have to deal with the API. And that is what I can teach you how to do. So if this sounds like something that you hadn't ever thought of doing, please come and talk to me or find us at Electronic Frontiers Australia, and we will teach you how to do this. And there's a Privacy Act submissions process happening right now, so you can come and write your first tech policy program today. Thank you.
First tech adventures, I work out how to turn on the mic. Hey, thank you, Justin. Next up is Matthias, whose topic I've lost on my phone.
Don't worry.
All right, Matthias can introduce himself. I will start the timer.
So everybody, I am Matthias Botlesniak. I am originally Norwegian. Right now I live in New Zealand. I am a board member of the Typo 3 Association. We make a CMS, open source, of course, and I work at Thu, which is an open source SaaS solution. I'm going to tell about an experience we had in the Typo 3 Association. Suddenly one day we got a phone call from the Rwandan government. You get lots of those too, I'm sure, but we got one. And they had 250 installations of our CMS that they needed to upgrade. So what did we do? We thought about recommending a member agency to go down there and get stuff done, right? Yeah, because that's kind of what other people do in development aid. They establish a business down in a poor country, and they export all of the money they earn and take it out of the country. Or they use closed source solutions with vendor lock-in, and yeah, they create financial dependence. The words that we name that with is colonialist and exploitative, right? We can do that in open source too, but we thought, let's use our community to create independent local business and expertise, right? So that's what we did. We sent experts from our agencies down to help local agencies become experts on Typo 3 and therefore help their government. So, in short, that's a democratic and not-for-profit open source project that supports sustainable and independent local business. Tell that to Adobe. What? So, it's important. This is locally led. The money goes directly to the people who are using the money. It's not going through other organizations. And it's non-exploitative, and it's anti-colonial. Super. Perfect. This is the result. We now had 250 websites online for the government in Rwanda, and they're planning 250 more. Perfect. So, what more does open source do, though? The values of open source are the values of a healthy society. We're a civil society. Civil society won the Nobel Peace Prize last year. So, these democratic values of open source, they are under attack today. And I want to tell you guys that open source strengthens civil society here in Australia or in Norway or in New Zealand or anywhere else as well, if we remember to think about it not only as a business, but as a civil society initiative. So you can read more and download the report.
Thank you, Matthias. Next up is Emily Trow, whose topic is I went to Everything Open and all I got was this lousy vulnerability. Emily, on this side, sorry. And Fraser Tweedo, you should be preparing on the other side for your talk if you haven't already. So, Emily, here we go. Your timer starts now.
Tech. Okay, we got it. All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Emily. So my talk, I went to Everything Open, and all I got was this lousy vulnerability. So I'm 22. I'm from Melbourne. Here are my socials. I'm one of the organizers for Down Under CTF, which is an annual cybersecurity capture the flag competition. We host it online for about 4,000 people, and it's always a lot of fun. If that's your thing, check us out. But more recently, what I'm known for is this blog post here about Tailscale. My partner and I found a remote code execution vulnerability in the Tailscale VPN client. So going to any website, bam. And that was a lot of fun. But that's a few months ago, basically ancient history. This week, I'm here at Everything Open. I know, that's crazy. I see some of you not believing. I brought proof. And here at Everything Open, there were so many great talks, but this one by David on Houdini of a terminal, this one got me really amped up and thinking. If you weren't there to see the talk, if you can put some arbitrary text with some little sneaky control characters onto a vulnerable person's terminal. You can do some fun things like hide output or even start programs. And it's a little bit terrifying. But that got me thinking, do I know anywhere I could use my little newfound superpower on? And got me thinking back to my roots, Tailscale! And I thought, I'll just go check them out. If you aren't familiar with Tailscale, they're a mesh network, so each node can talk to every other node. They have this command called status, which tells you which everyone else you're able to talk to, and specifically, this caught my eye, this line that says, hey, I'm Linux, hey, I'm iOS. Well, what if I'm not Linux or iOS? What if I'm something else? And since Tailscale is open source, I went spelunking into their code, found this line, changed it, ripped it right out, put in my little exploit, and bam, it's red. And like we all like to say, the rest is an exercise left to the reader. I sent this off to Tailscale, they patched it overnight, server-side, it's all good, in 8 hours, wrote a talk, speedrun! And yeah, thank you everybody, that was my very first talk.
Thank you, Emily. Next up, Fraser Tweedale talking about a tax combinator library should be useful for, and again, my phone's locked up, but away you go. Timer starts.
Who's on the other side?
Next on the other side is Yakov.
Okay, so who saw Piers' talk the other day on rules as code? Some people, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. You must watch this talk, and I'm sort of going to riff off some of the content from Piers' talk, which included this lovely gem, so a snippet of the Rates Rebate Act from New Zealand. A ratepayer is entitled to a rebate of so much as the rates payable for that rating year, blah, 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 2/3 of this, 1/8 of that, and it's enough to make your eyes glaze over. Let's just collectively scream when we try to read this and make sense of it. That's so much nicer. Okay. So this is a quick implementation I whacked up, implementing those rules as code, and Haskell code specifically, and the bits in yellow are functions from a library that I have written some time ago. And you can call those functions combinators. Combinators are functions that compose smaller computations or values into a more complex computation. The functions typically follow some laws, which allows our ability to reason about the computation to scale as it grows. It also allows compilers to recognize opportunities for optimization and so on. So here are some other examples using some of these same combinatorial functions. Simpler examples in this case, the Medicare levy. If you look at the ATO's explanation of how the Medicare levy is defined, it'll say, well, you've got the lower shade-in threshold and the upper shade-in threshold and all of this jargon. Really, that's all it is. So it's above the lower threshold at a rate of 10 cents per dollar, and then a flat rate of 2% always, and it's just the lesser of those two rates. The low-income tax offset can be defined as a lump sum of negative $445, so we're going to give you back $445, but if your income is over a certain amount, then that rebate is going to be gradually reduced at 1.5% until the rebate is 0. And the library also includes some helpers for constructing marginal tax rates. And so a tax is basically a function with some lovely abstractions that you can trivially derive. You can combine the taxes this way. You get a nice way to do things like working out your weekly withholding just by inflating and then dividing the inputs and outputs. The library is there. I personally use it for personal income tax, stuff that's implemented, stuff that's not implemented, known issues.
Thank you, Fraser. Next up, Yakov talking about radio shenanigans, and Sen Un should be preparing on the other side. All right, time starts now.
Oh no. Awesome. Hi everyone. I'm Yakov. I've been doing some fun radio stuff around online and on campus here, and I've been talking to a few people, and I thought I would share it with everyone. Have you ever wondered what might happen if you filled a stadium and everyone's phone tried to do Bluetooth pairing with every other phone, as Jeff mentioned the other day? Or any current past volunteers, if anyone who's used a handheld radio, have you ever taken it for a walk and noticed that it works a lot better when you're physically holding the radio, but if you put it on a table, it doesn't sound so good? Or have you just maybe wondered how to improve your Wi-Fi at home? Sorry, this was the best stock image I could find. So I've always had a bit of an interest in radio and walkie-talkies, and this national treasure and bad influence in a good way kind of dragged me into the deep end. So in 2020, during the lockdown, some people started baking sourdough, and I started learning electronics theory. It turns out all the things you can do in the amateur radio hobby are incredibly diverse and have all sorts of different aspects and niches. I haven't done all of these, but I will show you some things I have done. Let's hope the audio is working here. This is me yesterday on level 4 upstairs. No audio. Loading Zork, the classic adventure game, over a radio connection. That's a little handheld radio in the corner there. It is trying to connect. It seems like it takes 2 times. There we go, there's some audio. And there we have Zork. There it is, west of house. You are standing in an open field. This is one of the antenna towers that the local radio club where I live uses for radio contests. And this is me operating a station Victor Kilo 2 Whiskey during that contest, with multiple operators and multiple radios trying to get as many points as we could get by making contact with other contest stations around the world. This is a basic diagram for a radio repeater. When you transmit from your radio, it gets picked up by a more powerful radio that retransmits it so more people can hear you. Height is very important here. So the higher up the repeater antenna, the larger its range, the more people can hear you. But how high can we go? 50 meters? 200 meters? What if we put one in space? So this is me at Bondi Beach with a directional antenna to talk to someone else through the International Space Station 400 kilometers above ground. It was fun. There are some more things I want to do and haven't got to yet, electronics and soldering. SSTV is sending pictures, which can include memes, which is quite fun. ATV is broadcast television, so essentially real-time video. And seconds. I would love to talk to the crew on the ISS via radio, which you can also do if they're overhead when they pick up the radio and you are at the same time. If you want to know more or you want to do this as well, please come talk to me afterwards and learn how to get started. I can't fit that into a 3-minute talk at all, no matter how much time I have left on there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yakov. So next we have Sen Un talking about putting yourself out there, a group effort.
I'll wait for you to start, but before you start, someone's left their, this is Fraser Tweedales.
And can we have Angus Grattan preparing on this side, please?
All right.
All right, your time starts now.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sen. I use they, them pronouns. And this is my first time at any linux.conf or everything open. I guess you've only heard of change the name this year? I'm not sure. First time. So at the first keynote, thank you, Hugh. I was very inspired by your talk. And unfortunately for the rest of you lot, I am an educator at heart, and as soon as I learn something, I want to put it into use. And of course, the best way to put something into use is to teach it. And I have a captive audience. So I thought that perhaps we might all want to have a go at putting ourselves out there and maybe doing something that we are maybe not necessarily, I guess, familiar with, willing to do. Okay, so if you don't want to do this, you don't have to. I will preface this with that. But I was thinking we could do a group sing-along. Just a small one, just one verse from a very particular song that I'm sure a lot of you, being fellow nerds, will be quite familiar with. So, at this unholy hour of, 5 o'clock-ish, something like that, I hope you're still alive with me to sing this. This was a triumph. I'm making a note here, huge success. It's hard to overstate my satisfaction. Aperture science. We do what we must because we can. For the good of all of us, except the ones who are dead. But there's no sense crying over every mistake. We just keep on trying till you run out of cake. And the science gets done, and we make a neat gun for the people who are still alive. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sen. So if Luke and Matt could start preparing now for their talk on... All right, and up on this side, Angus Grattan talking about open source electronic vehicles. And I'll just set the timer. All right, your time starts now.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks. I'm going to apologise. I have a brand new laptop. It's running Wayland. I put it on the test thing. It worked fine. I put it on this thing. Now there's nothing showing for anybody. So we're going to probably have a very short talk because I've got a lot of slides already for a 3-minute talk, but we'll see how we go. Yeah, good enough. All right. So anybody who owns a modern car that's maybe like 8 to 10 years old probably is already maybe aware, many people in this room, what you really own is a complicated distributed system, like maybe 100 CPUs, all connected to each other, running various operating systems, various instruction set architectures. All of it's proprietary. Almost nobody knows how it all works. Ford were very proud for some reason. There are 150 lines of code in a Ford F-150 in 2016. I think there's only going to be more lines of code in a more recent car. Absolutely baffling numbers. At the high level, they're arranged in modules. This is the architecture diagram of a 2017 Skoda SUV. It's probably pretty typical for a car of this era that you've got a layout something like that. Electric vehicles, even more complicated. This is an extract, I apologize, it's too small because of monitor problems, from a Tesla Model 3 CAN messages. So the parts on the top are all the different fields in the messages. It's pretty dense. There are over 4,000 lines. That's a community-made document, and it's probably incomplete as far as I know. So lots of complexity. This means a lot of things. 2 things it means: repairing is very difficult, and often it just means replacing the things that seem to be broken or the subsystems that seem to be broken. And as a result, those things get thrown out or recycled, as does the entire car at the end of its life. This is really downcycling. You take something that mostly works and is a very, very complicated manufactured product, and you break it down into raw materials in a really dirty process. And it's better than putting it in landfill, but it's also really, really inefficient. So what can we do about that? One thing we can do, which is just one small thing, is to reuse parts from smashed up electric vehicles to electrify existing vehicles. This is a Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid that I bought for not actually that much money. Here's somebody else not related to me has taken the rear motor from that and put it in the front of a Subaru Impreza. They're putting another one in the back. I think it's going to be quite an interesting car when it's done. There's somebody called Damien Maguire in Ireland who does a heap of this stuff. This is his BMW station wagon with a Nissan Leaf and an open source controller. Here's him hacking on a Model 3 drive unit to make it work outside of a Tesla. This is my Hyundai Kona electric that I also bought at auction. I have a bit of a problem at this point. I'm planning to use the motors, batteries, to drive another electric vehicle conversion. But it still needs to be reverse engineered before that can work. So if you're interested in any of these things, if any of this sounds remotely interesting, like there's just tons of crazy technology in cars these days. It's really mind-blowing how much they're trying to jam in there. So here are some websites to find out some more. I hope to be back to talk more about this project in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Angus. And next we have Luke Burns and Matt Sengia talking about confidence in coding, teaching teens tech, and your time starts as soon as I figure out the timer. There we go, now.
Hello, my name is Luke. This is my Matt Sen for the day.
Yes, I'm Matt Sen. We'd like to share the impact of the impact lessons on teaching kids tech and how important instructions are when you are instructing somebody to make a sandwich, including like how to hold the knife. I don't normally look like that, but this was while I was being instructed to make a sandwich as if I was a computer. It was great.
He does look like that when I ask him to do new coding projects, though, in that particular direction, at that particular person, so that's normal. Confidence is really important with coding. Peter Andrews mentioned earlier in the conference how scary it is talking in front of all you guys. I'm a long-time lurker and a first-time talker, and I would need to pee. After years of hackathons, Matt and I have wanted to create a program to deliver broad ICT youth members of all ages stuff. So generic Scout hack term was used, and the aim is to create a legion of devs so that we don't have to be voluntold to keep doing all the work in the future.
I've written a lot of code for Scouts Victoria, and we want some help from the youth. It's going to be great.
Most important thing we've learned, particularly on my own journey, I'm not a coder, but I'm learning so much more than I was before. We really need to be the people we needed when we were kids. In order for us to have succession plans for all of the wonderful things we talked about this weekend, we need to, these last couple of days, we need to really reach out in that sense and be those people that we needed in the future, to build the future. So we also need to do a little bit of metaphorical calculus and make that get derivative, make the amount of effort it takes to actually learn this stuff easier. Give the kids the easy answers. Don't make them slog through it. We don't need to just keep learning the way we used to. We have all new challenges to try and overcome and a big mountain to climb as it stands. The other thing to do is celebrate the small wins. What's hard for one person is really easy for others and vice versa.
I want to call out a quick example to this. We were seeing in one of the tutorials the other day where somebody showed up who hadn't necessarily programmed before and learned some keyboard shortcuts for like copy and paste, and that might be their takeaway, even if they didn't necessarily complete the entire exercise. And so people have different levels of where they're at, and that's great.
And the outcome for that is building that confidence. It doesn't matter what the size of what they've learnt does. It does. What is important is that you highlight how important it is that they celebrate that they can do this and that this is just another step along the journey. The other part too is keep it simple, stupid. Make resources useful for deployment for participants. We're trying to teach tech. We're trying to teach the joy of the skill rather than the skill itself too. Real environments are important too. Matt did a lot of work making individual Docker containers for our participants to use.
It was exhausting, but it worked out really well.
And don't use clunky tools. Use stuff that you would expect to use in a prod environment too. Perfection is an enemy of done. Just do it, guys. Just do it. Kids are resilient. They'll learn how it works. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Luke and Matt. And now our last lightning talk, Honest Rob. Honest Rob's used car and VoIP empanadas, giving back to community, slideshow karaoke.
Yeah, so I literally have not seen this. Sarah has been absolutely on the ball about not letting me see this. And the clock has started. So hi, I'm Rob. Are you going to come and do the times? Oh, she's gone. Okay, sorry. I'm Rob, otherwise known as Honest Rob, and I'm an open source kind of guy. I've been involved in Linux for many years. I was the founder of the Sydney Linux Users Group, and I've been doing foss stuff pretty much ever since. I fell into the VoIP industry because I wrote FreePBX, because it scratched an itch that I had at the time. And I would like to emphasise I've apologised for FreePBX many, many times since. Because I'm in the VoIP industry and I want to help out Linux Australia, I've been giving VoIP hosting, calls, numbers, etc. to LA, Linux Australia, LCA delegates, if you remember it, New Zealand, and now Everything Open, and EO delegates, if anyone actually asked. No one asked, but it's all good. Usually sponsored by my current employer. However, due to timing and the accountancy stuff, I don't actually have a current employer who was able to sponsor EO. This left us with the problem of who would Linux Australia thank? This absolutely serious and important problem led to the extremely legitimate and real Honest Rob's used car and VoIP emporium, Explodium, Emporium, whatever it's called today. Pretty much being made up on the spot last weekend is a bit of fun. I've got to scroll down now, sorry about that. Oh no, I went too far. I know, it's terrible. The obvious question here is, why would I do this? Because I want to give back to the community. I can't emphasise how much Linux Australia helps not just me, but the entire free and open source community in Australia. And one of the things I love about coming to these conferences is meeting a bunch of people, some regulars, some new. Emily's a prime example. But I always come away learning something new. This, to me, is worth more than any sponsorship or branding. However, I would like to point out, I believe I'm contractually obliged to say that that previous statement is false, and please buy a car or some VoIP from us or something. Thank you. That's the last bit. So what's the end result? I get to have a great time. I get to bring a bit of levity and non-seriousness to Everything Open, which is full of seriously smart people talking about seriously smart things, and I always find it a massive honour and a privilege to be allowed to help out. Thanks for letting me come. Thanks for listen to me ramble on, and feel free to ask Honest Rob about his larders. There's no larders!
Thanks to all of our speakers. Please give them another round of applause. And I hope that many of you are inspired to submit a lightning talk for the next Linux Australia Auspice conference that you attend.
And thank you to Neil.